Did you know that out of 28 million people in Texas, only 5.2% are Asian and only 0.1% are Pacific Islander? At Northwest High School, 2.4% of our school population is Asian and 0.36% are Pacific Islanders. So it's no surprise that the conversation of Pacific Islander and Asian American history is not talked about or heard about much due to the lack of representation in our state and our district.
Now, it's not only important for us as people, but us as Americans as well to understand their culture and their history. Native Americans, African Americans, Caucasian Americans, Hispanic Americans, as well as many different other ethnicities help build the foundation of this country. But it's important this month to recognize Pacific Islander and Asian Americans for what they did. They not only built the foundation of this country with their hard work, hard labor, and long hours, but they were also fighting for their rights as well.
AAPI Month was first introduced on May 7th in 1943 to mark the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad on May 10th, 1869, which was built by a majority of Chinese immigrants. In fact, it was reported to be almost 20,000 Asian immigrants. Shifting our focus to the things Asian Americans did for this country, and not only for this country, but also Texas as well. A big one being Larry Itliong. He migrated to America back in 1929, then created the Farmer Labor Union, which encouraged protesting and strikes for farmers in 1956, which at the end of the day was responsible for higher wages and more rights that are still in place for farmers today. Even now, something you may or may not watch every day, YouTube, was developed by Asian American Stephen Chen. Now, it's important to know all the things Asian Americans did for our country, but it's also important for us to reflect on all the things they had to do to get here. Moving throughout our history, there has been many revolutions advocating the rights for Pacific Islanders and Asian Americans. Things like the Asian American movement in the 60s and 70s. Even to today, you would think after things like Black Lives Matter movement being a hot topic, active racism would calm down. But for the Asian American community, it has been quite the contrary. Hate crimes in America have actually gone down by 6% since the pandemic started, while anti-Asian hate crimes have gone up by 145%. So if you think AAPI Month isn't important, if you think that Pacific Islander and Asian American history is simply not relevant to American history, if you think America could thrive without Pacific Islanders and Asian Americans, you'd simply be wrong. We often divide Pacific Islander Americans and Asian Americans from the word American simply because of their ethnicity. But without them, there would be no America. From NHS TV, this has been Cole Richardson.